I look back on my career as a young gang detective or gang deputy and patrol officer, and I can put myself in their exact same shoes more times than I can remember. And I never got shot, whether it was a one-on-one fight on the ground or not, because if I felt the person had a gun, I tattooed him in the head or the back of the neck. I took a strike to save my life. And I hooked him up. And I didn't have the fear and the apprehension in the back of my head of, am I going to lose my fucking job? And that's what pisses me off, is that these cops got to go out there and do their job, and their fear of losing their job for protecting their life.
All right, you're all ready?
Sure.
Okay, can you introduce yourself for me, please?
Yeah, my name is Ty Labbe, and I'm a retired homicide detective, and I work for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for just over 32 years.
32 years, Ty. And then we were talking about this before we started. Did you have a specialty? What was your expertise as a homicide detective?
Well, I was always involved with cellular phone technology throughout most of my career. And so I would say if there was one thing I was extremely good at and understanding, would be the evolution of using cell phone technology in a homicide investigation. I think my one specialty was being able to solve crime and to be able to convict people for murder. But as a niche within that community, my niche would have been using cellular technology when it first came out to convict people in murder cases.
We're going to obviously talk about your career and how you got there. But when you started as a police officer, what was your goal? Was it always to be a homicide detective, or you didn't think about that till later?
No, back in 1987, 88, and working the jail, and then getting a patrol, in 89, 90, around that time, all I really wanted was a pencil to write police reports and to be able to go out and catch bad guys on the street. That was the thrill of being a police officer, is to go out there and in your mind making an impact at that level, the way you thought when you were a young man in a police car, was to go out and take bad guys to jail. I wasn't into traffic. I wasn't into standing on the corner saying hello to kids. I was working early mornings and going find bad guys and take them to jail for anything they were doing to wreak havoc on the community.
So no real goal to become a homicide. You just wanted to put people in jail.
In the beginning, yes, and it's a goal stage of patrol was great. My focus was becoming a field training officer. I accomplished that. My next goal was, I really like working gangs. The areas I worked were predominantly Hispanic gangs, and a huge influx of Asian gangs came into the San Gabriel Valley. They were vicious. They were doing, I think, 1 year alone, they had done about 165 home invasion robberies in a 365-day year.
Those are Asian gangs?
Asian gangs.
Why do you think that was? What made the Asians more violent than everything else?
They weren't more violent than anyone else. They just had a different way of violence, and really with their own people. It was savagery. I mean, sticking ice picks in the kneecaps of the dad to give up where the money was hidden in the house, tying everyone up, dunking their babies in the toilet repeatedly to force people to give up where the MJB was. They called it money, jewelry, and boomers, guns. And this was new to us as young patrol people, to the police community, and where the Asians came in, like Monterey Park, El Monte, Temple Station, in the San Gabriel Valley, was such a huge influx. And like anything, 99% of that community was excellent, hardworking people, but they had their 1%er that were wreaking havoc on their own.
Let me ask you about that. The 1%er, was it people that grew up in the United States that just become savages, or was it people that came here, kind of immigrants that just came in with a whole different set of values? What do you think that was?
Well, in my experience, it was a combination of both, but mostly an influx from the outside. Kind of like what we're seeing today as well. That's been polarized. But yeah, it was influx of both. Maybe first generation kids, or just straight over. They would come over to do contract work and then leave. That's how they operated, the Chinese and Vietnamese gangs in our area.
Yeah, because I don't see the Asian community as a whole. When I see them as good, hardworking people. So when you're talking about this violence and stuff, it's not the people that have grown up here, lived here, and trying to make a productive life.
Well, I think it's, like I said, a combination. What we would see as we would at that time, and I'm talking from 90 to 95-ish.
Okay.
With that community, we in Temple's area, we would see established Viet Cong, Wat Ching gang members, different gangs, come in, and they would recruit kids from very affluent communities like Sierra Madre, Arcadia, upper end of Pasadena, and they would recruit these kids. They'd roll up in a BMW and say, "You want one of these?" And they were hooked.
Yeah.
And so now that they've got these kids that are straight A students, and mom and dad are completely oblivious as to what they're doing.
Right.
And that's what they would do. They would just prey on them and suck them in. And once they were in, it was over.
Ty, tell me a little bit. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. I lived mostly in Baton Rouge area. My entire family's still there to this day. And when I was about 12 years old, mom and dad decided to come to California and start a new career and introduce us to, a different lifestyle.
Yeah. 70s, 80s?
Yes, this would have been in 1978, 79, we moved to California. And we settled in a little quiet, white-collar, somewhat affluent town of Glendora, California, in the foothills. So I went to high school there. I graduated early at the age of 17 and a half. And was looking for a job like any kid. My mom and dad said they're going to move to Texas. And I went, nah, I'm a Louisiana boy. I don't do well with Texans, right? And at 17 and a half, almost 18, I said, no, I'm going to stay. And I got a job. Ins and outs at hardware stores and whatnot, found a room to rent from somebody, and my dad sold me my brother's car for $1,000 with a 3% loan, and had to pay him back on that. And it was a 1979 Datsun 210 with a Hurst shifter and a fire extinguisher because he'd catch on fire a lot with the Alpine stereo. But yeah. Those are some good times there. But, I was very early on, put your boots on, become a man. Not like today's kids, I don't think, that I saw and see around me, still living at home with mom and dad.
What'd your parents do? I mean, you know, to even sell you a car and then say, you're paying me at a 3% loan. So what'd they do?
A used car from my brother that he did that to my brother first.
Right.
My dad was a distribution manager for trucking companies post cancer and before cancer. He got cancer. But he also worked at oil refinery, and he would jump into oil rigs that were emptied out and check for cracks and inspect stuff like that. So he was a blue-collar, hardworking man, you know, raised on oil plants in the Norco area of Louisiana. That community, that's where he lived and grew up. And a lot of my family still lives in Norco. Very proud of Norco, even though I never lived there. Just the heritage that it brought from my grandfathers and my family that all worked hard in the refineries. I'm very proud of them. They're strong, family-oriented men.
Yeah.
You know? And my mom worked as an executive administrator to several oil companies that worked different pumps and valves, things that make the pumps go. They had patents on a lot of different things. Bernard and Burke, Johnson Pump, General Valve. So when the company decided to leave, come to California, she came with them. So my dad had a job. He could be remote with an old facsimile machine, which probably a lot of users or people watching this don't even know what that is. But so my mom, you know, we went with her, and then when the company said enough of California politics and economy and taxation in the early 80s, mid 80s, they left to go to Texas. And they went and settled in a town called Katy, was where the plant was. And my folks bought a place down in Fulshear, Texas. And they stayed there 17 years and then retired, sort of, and moved back to Louisiana.
So fair to say that's where you got your work ethic from.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Work ethic and internal strength and the, you know, accountability.
Any focus on education from your parents?
Yeah, they were obviously on our jock to get good grades, but I wasn't the best student. You know, I was probably a CB average. I'm grateful to have 3 beautiful boys that are just brainiacs, and they're all 4.0 and above. And I look at their math today, and I'm like, no, 1, 2, okay, it's 19. But no, they did. One of my options to go to college. I didn't want to go to Texas, though, and I had lost the window to go to LSU as being a resident. They really didn't have the money for me to do that. And my brother went to Cal State Fullerton, my other brother, and I just had a sense of wanting to serve the public since probably about the age of 15. And I always liked the military. I was just infatuated with the military. My dad, at 17, I told you at 17 and a half, I graduated high school. You don't hear of that anymore because they put the age things on them. But I came to my dad and I said, Dad, I want to become a Marine. I want to fly a Marine helicopter. And but I said, you need to sign this so I can go. And he looked at me and he said, son, that's a big decision. That's a life decision as a man and as an adult. And you're almost there. In 6 months, you're going to make that decision. I'm not going to sign early for you. And so in that 6 months, a buddy of mine who had already graduated high school and had gotten a job with the LA County Sheriff's Department as a civilian intern which basically at that time, the intern program for the sheriff's department was grooming young men and women like me and him to become deputies. You can only stay in it for 3 years, 4 years, I think. And you either you were going to get fired or get a different civilian job on the department or become a deputy. So it's kind of like a stepping stone, but you got paid. And so I was like, wow. And so, of course, being young and always being interested in government, that by far my best grades were in government classes. My teacher was amazing, and he would get me on ride-alongs with the police locally and whatnot, and so I ended up becoming an intern. I applied and got the job.
Where do you think that sense of service came from?
I don't know. I think that the way I was probably raised, a feeling of wanting to give back, a feeling of wanting to do something good, a feeling of being a leader. I was a leader on the football and baseball field. I was a catcher. I was an inside linebacker, team captain, and if you look at Major League Baseball, the majority of managers in the major leagues over the history of the league are catchers. They're leaders. And so I think it just kind of started from that. Maybe my football coaches, my dad, the people that influenced me, teachers, it's kind of what I gravitated towards. I really can't pinpoint why, but that's what it was. And I liked excitement. I liked to be moving. I liked the obvious struggles of it, and I didn't like people. I didn't like people stealing from other people or hurting other people because they wanted their car or they wanted to take some old lady's purse. So that pissed me off. They deserve to be in jail.
Yeah. I
mean, quite frankly, I know there's due justice, and I had to live with it for 30 years. But when someone's caught red-handed, I kind of have a liking to other countries that chop their goddamn hand off right now, and everyone knows that person lost his hand because he stole something. Working homicide, it is the ultimate crime, and the respect that you have to give to that as an investigator is tremendous. It's the ultimate crime to solve. And it pisses you off that someone got shot and killed. Let's face it, when gang members shoot and kill each other, I don't shed a tear pretty much. And I don't think I ever have. But when a stray bullet hits a 4-year-old, yeah, man, you turn things into a different gear, when the innocent get hurt. And usually it's the innocent that catch the stray bullet, or, the drunk kills the family and he walks away, but the family's all dead. It's just the way it happens a lot in our world. But for me, that pissed me off. That pissed me off when criminals steal things. You see the devastation and the terror and fear of a wife or even a husband and the kids when their house gets broken into. And they say, "Oh, I got robbed." No, you didn't get robbed, but you got burglarized. And but it's an invasion and privacy, and it's the ultimate one, man. That people, it really hits you when you see the fear and terror when someone was in their house looking through their stuff and stealing their stuff without them knowing about it.
Yeah,
it's a hard one for a lot of people to get over. That pissed me off. I want to take that guy to jail. So I had a training officer. He loved to take hypes to jail. And a hype, if you don't know what a hype is someone who sticks a needle in their arm to get high, and they got to go get another chip of heroin, so they break into your house and steal your shit. And he loved taking hypes to jail. And I hated it because they were dirty. They carried all kind of diseases with them. But at the same time, it gave you satisfaction. They'd be out in a couple of hours, but it gave you satisfaction. At least put the hooks on them and take them off the street for a little bit.
Yeah. In 87, you get hired by the LA County Sheriff, but Did you ever consider going to any other department, or because you had that internship, I'm just, that's where I'm going to go?
I never did.
Okay.
I lived in a Glendora, but Glendora's surrounded by county areas patrolled by the sheriff's department. And we'd go to high school parties in the city and in the sheriff's area. And city, shoo you along. The sheriffs didn't mess around. Even in little Sleepy Hollow, San Dimas Station, I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference between Lenox Station and San Dimas Station and the different dynamics of those until later on. But a lot of those guys that came over to San Dimas were kind of at the end of their career, and they were all ghetto gunslingers back in the day. And they didn't mess around. They held up to the reputation of deputy sheriff. One deputy, one riot was their mentality. And so when we'd be at these high school parties, next thing you know, the ghetto birds overhead shine a light on us, and we're doing kid shit. We're flipping it off. But then all of a sudden, 15 deputies jump over the back wall with riot gear on, swinging batons, saying, "Get the fuck out of here." And you have to walk by a German Shepherd up on its haunches trying to rip your arm off. And I'm going to be honest with you, I got a fucking heart on. I'm like, this is badass. These guys don't mess around. And I became a deputy. I want to become a deputy.
So when you started in 87, you started like most other deputies. You started in the jail. How important do you think working in the jail was for the rest of your career?
I'm going to start that by saying I hated working in the jail. I hated being sick. I hated looking up at the ceiling and seeing a cloth towel that was white over a vent turned black because the county let inmates smoke in the jail. I hated the jail in that regard. However, it was tantamount to understanding the streets and people and being able to read people before you went out on the streets. I could recognize a convict probably better than my TO because I just came out of it. I just came out of the jail. I worked IRC, Inmate Reception Center, in the late 80s. And you got to talk to inmates going to state prison for murder, drugs, gangs, mafia members, whether it was Mexican, white, or black, or Asian. You got to... If you played it right, you got to start your street knowledge right then and there. You weren't a babysitter. Right. I wasn't sitting in a module just counting heads and making sure bed call and they were going this and that. At IRC, we saw a lot of turnover. We saw the guys come in from the street, and we had to deal with them from the street, in street clothes, search them, strip them down. A lot of times they're intoxicated and drunk, so you had to learn how to deal with that. Mental issues as well. You had to deal with all walks of life, whether it was transgenders or men that looked like men, but actually they had a vagina, which was like a trip to me because I'd never seen that in my life. And, you're doing a bath, you're doing a 200-man bath line. The guy strips down, he looks like a man, but he's got a vagina. And everyone's like, "Deputy, let him go up to 9,000. Please let him go up to 9,000," because they want to rape him.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm 20 years old. I was a deputy before I was 21. I had a gun and badge, but I couldn't go into a bar and get a beer. I had to go to a cop bar.
Yeah.
Where they didn't badges. But yeah, you're seeing this shit for the first time, and you want to call mom and go, "Mom, what?" And your mom don't know what that shit is. I didn't learn nothing about that. I didn't have one gay friend in high school. I'm sure they were gays, but we had only like 3 black people in my school.
Yeah.
We had more Asians than we had anything, but it was mostly white kids and whatnot, and Hispanic. But that was all new to me. It was crazy, And then you're dealing with a 28-year-old OG Crip who's ripped, is a stud. And you got to go toe to toe with this guy if he gets pissed off. So you learn real quick how to fight, and you learn real quick how to talk to people, so you can avoid that fight.
Yeah.
We didn't carry flashlights at IRC. The jail guys carried flashlights. And anytime they'd run to back us up on a big brawl, we'd tell them, put them goddamn flashlights away, because they'd hit each other and break elbows in our hands and shit. And we just at IRC, we had kind of an unwritten policy that you're going to work IRC, you better learn how to be a man. You better be able to go toe to toe with somebody, and be able to, take someone down.
Yeah.
And it was different back then, we had heavier hands back then. We were allowed to have heavier hands.
Yeah.
And the inmates understood that, this is our house, and you're not going to disrespect a deputy. You're not going to catcall a female deputy.
Ty, where do you think that attitude changed? Because somewhere along the line, we've become a little softer as opposed to what you guys were doing in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Why do you think that changed?
I think lawyers had a big impact on the change. Civil rights organizations, a lack of respect for police. Obviously, cameras and recording devices changed a lot of things. Social media, technology really changed that. It somewhat disgusts me when I read these blogs about law enforcement and what people say. I'm out of it now, but I'm still part of that community.
Sure.
I do some work for a small agency, and it's a struggle. Everyone is micromanaged so much with the social media and exposing into people's lives as police now. It's dangerous. I seen 2 shootings of a police officer, very similar circumstances, and they were shot, and they both survived, thank God. And both suspects got shot and were killed, thank God, in my opinion. But I look back on my career as a young gang detective or gang deputy and patrol officer, and I can put myself in their exact same shoes more times than I can remember. And I never got shot, whether it was a one-on-one fight on the ground or not. Because if I felt the person had a gun, I tattooed him in the head or the back of the neck. I took a strike to save my life. And I hooked him up. And I didn't have the fear and the apprehension in the back of my head of, am I going to lose my fucking job? And that's what pisses me off, is that these cops got to go out there and do their job, and their fear of losing their job for protecting their life. And that's what really pisses me off. There's a young, and because I would hook them up, roll them over, and there's a 357 Magnum with a 6-inch barrel fully loaded, and the kid was 16. I hit him in the back of the head so hard his ear bled. But there was no issues with that. And I saved my life. I saved his life. Can't do that now. And that's a shame, that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The world, the United States needs to get back into letting policemen be policemen. And if we need to put hands on someone and be a little bit heavy on it to save our lives or someone else's, so be it. I blogged recently on Instagram. Okay, I blogged on Instagram, and it was 8 or 9 people went into a Target, and they completely terrorized and took every purse, everything off the shelf. People were scared, running for their lives. That is a felony. It's not a petty theft. That is a person with the intent to enter a 4-sided building to commit a crime. And technically, it could even be elevated to a robbery, because they're showing fear and intimidation to the public and to the people to steal a valuable commodity. You know what you can do under California law? You can shoot them. So I said what needs to happen is they need to start getting shot, and this will stop. But if someone shot them, they would be in prison. That's what's wrong with society in certain parts of the United States of America, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're watching what's happening in LA right now. This is we're filming this about the time that these riots are happening down in LA. And, you know, they're going crazy, but as soon as the military gets called in, it's over. Because the only thing these people understand is force. That's it. And so I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
How old are you when you get on patrol?
I was 21 years old.
Okay, so 21, when you get out of the jail, you go on patrol. Are you in initially you're in a two-man car because you're with an FTO, right?
Yes.
Okay, when you get off that FTO program, are you still in a two-man car or are you in a one-man car?
No, it was immediately, back in those days, you were immediately thrown into a traffic car.
Which is just...
One-man traffic car.
Just you.
On early mornings.
Okay, so you're 21 years old. You're rolling around for the first time by yourself. No military, no prior, police experience. How is that for you? You scared?
I was never scared in patrol.
Why not?
I was never scared of any part of my job because I have a job to do. That's what we do. I remember Governor Schwarzenegger when he was the governor of California. He tried to do something with law enforcement and with our retirement system and whatnot. And part of that was that if I died in the line of duty, my kids get to go to a university, a Cal State University free, which I think is a great thing. But the way he wrote the law, that would have been written out. And I wrote him an email. He never responded to me. And I wrote him an email and I said, sir, it's real easy to go down an alley in a movie set, dark alley, and know what the outcome's going to be. You're going to beat everybody up and you're going to be the hero. But when you're a police officer and you got to go down that dark alley and you don't know what you're facing and it could be life or death, it's different. Shame on you for trying to take away my kids' such a great thing that the state has recognized for giving potentially your life up. And to how much is it really going to cost the state to send two of my children to university because I'm not there for them anymore.
Right.
So the point was, stop mangling in our business. Look deeper into what we have to go through. But I was never scared ever. Your adrenaline's pumping, man. That's what I signed up for. So yeah, no, there wasn't not one time I was scared doing my job. Now, when I was working gangs as a detective and I wanted to go to homicide and I was working the get detail, which is predominantly the patrol saturation of gangs. We were a no-call car and we had a partner. We went out and we took gangsters to jail. That's what we did. Gather gang intelligence, take them to jail. And a lot of our sergeants came from SWAT, SEB. Special Enforcement Bureau is what the Sheriff's Department calls them. And they're one of the most well-trained SWAT details in the world. And so our sergeants, most of them were SWAT guys. And they said, hey, we're going to do some training today. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to do some training on blood spatter techniques or how to interrogate or, how to write an association warrant or things like that. No, they said, go to this jail. And they had a zip line, rappel line from one rooftop to another. And they're putting future detectives in harnesses. And I looked at the sergeant and I go, I'm not fucking doing that. First of all, I'm afraid of heights. I have no ambition to be a SWAT guy. You always know a SWAT guy because they always point with their hands like they're holding a machine gun. And I said, no fucking thank you. That's not me. I want to be a detective. And they laughed at me and I left. And they're like, no, you have to do this. I go eat a bowl of cock. I don't have to do that. And I walked off out of the room. But so I don't know.
Eat a bowl of cock.
Yeah.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah,
I've heard eat a bowl of dicks. But...
Yeah. So, I respect the shit out of them. And a lot of my friends and some great friends are all SWAT guys and they're awesome guys. But I always kind of laughed at them. They'd come to East LA where I worked gangs for 6 years, and they want to go to East LA because SWAT was behind the building. And the SWAT boys, we call them Slicky Boys, they were always on a run. They'd oil themselves up and run through the community. And so the gang guys that were aspiring to go to SWAT wanted to come to East LA because they got to see their idols go by and they could go run with them and stuff. So I'd say, all you're doing is wasting a death space. I go, you don't want to really be a detective. You want to be a SWAT guy. And, and East LA was a good place to work gangs.
Yeah.
Especially Hispanic gangs. And so I was fortunate to work there. Pissed off at the gang administrators. It's always the same thing. You've got all these great gang cops, gang detectives that know gangs, respect what they are about in the sense of cops and robbers, and do a heck of a job on them. And I worked East LA for 3 years as a gang deputy. And I went on loan as a detective there. And my supervisor captain at OSS, she decided, we made him a hired detective now. We're going to send him to Lennox Station. Now, mind you, I've worked East LA for 4 years now. I know every family in my area that I work. I know I've got informants. I'm solving crime. I'm getting guns. I'm doing the Lord's work, man. I'm taking bad people off the street for robberies, murders, etc. And she's going to uproot me and put me working black gangs in South Central LA, which I've never worked in my life. I'm like, this is a waste of time. And it was tough. It wasn't a complete use of the resources effectively, right. I think it was more of a punishment, freeway punishment to put me over there. And once I was over there, the guys were great, gals were great. I made some great friends and whatnot. And I worked hard for a year, and I did some good stuff over there at Lennox, and I had a lot of respect for that area and station. And but I went back to East LA, and I ended up doing several more years there before I went to a task force.
When you're in the OSS, the GET team, when you work in those gang units, talked a little bit about the Asian gangs. Now you talked about the black gangs, and you're obviously dealing with Hispanic gangs. In terms of being difficult to work with, I'm assuming they're all difficult to work with, but is there one specific race gang that is more difficult to work with than another?
No, it's the individual you encounter within that gang.
Okay.
Some within a gang, there's some that are very violent. There's some that are maybe a little bit smarter, a little bit more craftier. Most of them are just sheep that follow one person. When you break them down individually in an interview room, reality is most of them are soft as cotton, and they'll rat on their own, like right now, or they'll give it up on themselves to protect someone. There's a rare few that will say, "Fuck you, deputy. I got nothing to say," or they just stroke you along.
Yeah.
They're hardcore.
Yeah.
They've been there, done that. They just want to go back to prison. You got a case on me? Put it on me, pal. And it's straight up cops and robbers. And those are the ones you got to outsmart. Those are the ones that I like when I go in the interview room. I know they're going to be like that. I've got them lock, stock, and barrel. I don't need to interview them. I'm going to go in that interview and I'm going to fuck with their head one last time before they see me in court. And I'll let them know that. I let one of them know that very, very, very poignantly. One of my favorite ones, and put him in prison for life, federal life. And so that's the kind of interview you like to go in when you know you have them and you don't need to interview them. But yeah, I think it's more individual person.
Okay. How close was the movie Colors to what you were doing back then?
Well, it's a movie.
Yeah.
But they had some really good technical advisors on that, I thought, early on. But yeah, they portrayed street life pretty accurately. You know, the whole scene in the jail where they're jumping up and doing colors, and in the Sally Port of MCJ, and the main Sally Port is where that was filmed. Uh, that yeah, that ain't gonna happen. But as far as like rolling up on the little homies and the respect and that, and yeah, that they did some real good TA on that. There was a point in Colors where they messed up because they shot the scene in the gym in the locker room with the two actors, Duvall and Sean Penn. And if you notice, the lockers were all green, and on top of one of them was an LA County Sheriff's riot helmet, but they were supposed to be LAPD.
How did working the gangs and being a gang detective, how did that help you later on when you became a homicide detective?
That's a very good question, because I was always an advocate of anyone coming to Homicide Bureau should come from 2 assignments and no more. And those 2 assignments would be OSS, gangs, and child abuse. Child abuse produces some of the best investigators that we have, in my opinion.
Why?
They have to deal with people that are sick, that hurt little boys and girls. It takes a very strong-minded person to be able to sit down and interview with a person like that, get them to confess. And they're very methodical. Their laws are complicated, and they understand that, and they are able to interview and poise their questions in such a way to get the maximum charges filed. I was always impressed mostly with their ability to interview. And I often called on my colleagues at Homicide that had a background in that to do my interviews on child cases. I couldn't stomach walking into an interview room where a dad beat his daughter so bad that she had 38 bruises on her internal kidney and organs on the right side of her body in the autopsy. I wanted to just go in there and choke him out. That's why I think. And then, as far as back to your question, what did gangs do for me? 80% probably of our homicides are gang related. So unless you know how to talk to gang members, figure out their network, write association warrants, be able to do 6-packs, you're a car theft detective and you know how to read a VIN underneath an engine block, and you're coming to homicide. And there might be some guys that I work with that came from that background, and they might get pissed off at me and say, "Fuck you, Ty." But quite frankly, I don't think they're qualified to walk through the door. I really don't. They might be good guys. They may know somebody, and even still at narcotics. When does narcotics deal with a victim? You work DEA. Mm-hmm. When do you deal with a victim that you have to protect their whole family and relocate? Or you have to walk them and hold their hand into court because they're scared to death or their loved one died, and you have to console them. At gangs, you have to do all that.
Yeah.
So what homicide detectives do, in a sense, with the amount of gang cases in LA they handle, being an OSS detective is a perfect fit. They're complex cases. They're exhaustive on your mind, your body, your relationships at home, because you fall in love with the job and the work, and there's time restraints. There's things you have to do. Lives can be affected. And it's the same with homicide, for the most part.
What makes a good homicide detective?
Someone that can talk to somebody.
Okay.
I truly believe if you're not a people person, if you can't walk into a room and converse with a liberal or a conservative or someone who's mentally not right there about anything, you're not going to be a good homicide detective. I was taught the law. I was taught arrest procedures. I was taught all the internal stuff you need to know to be a cop. But you have to be someone that you have to talk to people. You have to be able to extrapolate what happened, put it into context, and weed through the bullshit. Because the only person, quite frankly, that believes in the truth, and I know that most people don't get this, civilians out there in the world, but the reality is the only person who gives a shit about the truth, about right and wrong and what happened in the case is the detective, whether it's homicide or whatever. Because think about it. The defense attorney has a job to do. He didn't give a shit about the truth. They want to get you off. The prosecutor wants to have enough evidence to convict you and to convict you. The judge is procedural. The judge wants to make sure both sides are doing the right thing and he or she's doing the right thing in accordance with the law. But as a homicide detective working the ultimate crime of murder of another human being and bringing justice to that family and that victim, you're seeking the truth. You're unbiased because you want that conviction and you want to make sure the right person is convicted. So that to me, going all the way back to it, a gang detective and child abuse, in my opinion, make the best homicide detectives because that's what we deal with, some of the intricacies of that.
Were there cases as a homicide detective, and I think I know this based on what you just said, but were there cases that you didn't like to work?
Well, I like working all the cases that I worked, but I'd have to say the worst cases for me, I never wanted to go back into the jail. And jail murders, I just didn't want to go deal with them because they was in the jail. And man, I got so lucky. I think I only had maybe 2 or 3 jail murders. Some guys, I talked to them in the officer, like, I've gotten 5 fucking jail murders in a row. I can't stand this anymore, right? I'll trade you. Please trade me. So yeah, I hated jail murders. It wasn't like they were difficult.
How about the kid stuff though?
Yeah, kids are hard, but there's an old detective. He's a talented man named Mike Bumcrot, and he still may be helping out. But when I went to homicide, he sat us down and the new people, and he said, "Hey, it's not like I hadn't seen dead bodies work murders with gangs. I mean, shit, in East LA, I think we had 24 murders in 3 months. So I was no stranger to blood, death, stabbing, shooting, etc. But he said to me, it was the first time I really heard it and it sunk in. There's 2 things he told me, us. Don't look at the body as a human being. Look at it as, well, while you're processing it, as evidence, because it is. It contains your evidence. And it is so true that it really does. Even if it's just a 1 gunshot wound, there's a lot of evidence there. Not just from the wound, but from everything around it, around the scene, the body, how it's positioned. Where's the spatter? How close is the wound? And so if you stay focused and you focus on, this is, yes, a human being, but it's also my body and my evidence, then you can correlate and process that a little bit better in your mind behind the scenes. But yeah, kids affected me. I told you about the little 1-year-old that was beaten to death by her dad. And what really affects you is the family put a GoFundMe on that, and people were kicking in money for it. I would like to tell the people, if they ever know what case I'm talking about, I'd like to take and show you the autopsy photos of that. Well, I had to sit there and look at the autopsy, and you'd probably change your mind about donating money to that son of a bitch. I always say there's a special place in hell for people that abuse animals and women and children, and
So-
he was one of them.
So talk a little bit about that, Ty, because we didn't, you and I hit on it, but can you tell the audience a little bit about that case and how that GoFundMe thing even started?
Well, it started from the mother of the baby and her family. It was a case my partner John O'Brien and I had. It was a baby case, beaten and shook, and it was basically a young Hispanic couple that didn't know how to care for a child and should have never had a child. And he was a stepdad. He came in the relationship and impregnated the woman, and they had a baby together, and he was young and he didn't know how to care for a child, and the child would cry, and so he would beat it, and he would strike it repeatedly in the stomach and chest area, and he was right-handed. So he also hit her with his left hand, but when we did the autopsy on the little baby, the whole right side of her internal organs was just obliterated. It looked like someone took in birdshot and shot the side of her body. Old bruising, new bruising, medium bruising, contusions, lacerations of the kidney, the lung, and the liver, fractures in the rib cage that had been healing and then rebroken. And yeah, that one, when they take the blue board out to take photographs, it's a blue piece of board used in photography at the coroner's office, and they start throwing the organs on the blue board, and you're looking at this little baby's kidneys or their lungs, and you know, I want to go back to the jail cell and I just want to rip his head off. It makes you sick to think that a human being could do that to their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the family says he's innocent, and they put up a GoFundMe and start raising money for him to get out of jail. You know,
Yeah.
and then she, you know, yeah. So turns out she was pregnant. We didn't know it, the wife, and she had a baby in jail, and he wanted that baby. So we had to get involved again to let the state know that there's no way in hell this guy's going to take care of another baby.
Yeah.
That's just some sick people.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, yeah, that's tough on you. And I think, you know, you can tell those ones affect you, you know. Another kid I had, my partner and I, was sick, came in as maybe a parental issue. So a two-man team went out to investigate, and she was dead. And she had basically died of the flu. She had gotten so bad it became a viral type infection, and we had to watch the doctors remove her spine from her body in the autopsy. And that one was hard because she was only about 6 or 7, and it could have been prevented.
Ugh.
You know, so yeah, the abuse is tough, but also too, you know, you see a baby drowning or a sudden infant death syndrome situation where they just roll over or suffocate themselves when they're little. I had one Hispanic couple that was living in basically a garage that had inadequate heating. So they swaddled the baby so much that it sweated out and dehydrated and died. They thought it was sick, and they wouldn't take it to modern medicine. And basically are putting so many blankets on this kid, this little baby, 8-month-old, that they suffocated it to death. When we unwrapped it, its skin was moist and peeling off, and so dehydrated out. Parts of it, not moist, but like clammy, like death clammy. It was just made you sick to your stomach. It all could have been prevented by education.
When we started this interview, Ty, you had mentioned, we talked about kind of your specialty, and you mentioned cell phones. How did you get interested in that?
Well, Asian gangs. Asian gangs came into Temple's area, and there was an old phone, if you remember it, I know you do, was a flip phone.
Yep.
The Motorola Flip.
Yep.
Shoot, I forget the model number on it, but they would take a reader on the freeway and they would intercept your internal phone number. Not your phone number, but your internal number.
Mm-hmm.
And they take that phone, and it had 3 prongs on the back, contact prongs from the battery to the unit. And they would ground that out and reprogram, the lawyer's number going down the highway. And they'd use his phone. Guy would get his bill and go, holy shit, $5,000. In 1993, that was a lot of money, right? And it still is to this day. But his phone got cloned. That's when the word clone started. Mm. So I learned early on from the grapevine of police, there was a way to trip that. So I always carried Wrigley's gum because it had the aluminum foil wrapper. And I'd fold it up into a little strip and I'd ground out the contact. And when you grounded out the contact, there was a code you could put in to the phone and it would give you the real phone number. You'd call the victim and wake them up and say, hi. And you got a 496, receiving stolen property charge. And the Asian gangsters were doing that like crazy. So I was ripping them all day long for these these clone phones, which would lead to gun arrest or Blaupunkt stereo, had serial numbers removed or whatever they got on them, right? Dope. So that's where it started. And I would go down and teach to Orange County agencies and other various agencies on that. Myself and a couple of sergeants I work with, another detective, would do that. And then, as phones evolved, obviously I stayed up on it, but I really got back into it when I went and worked for a federal task force and we were doing some wiretaps and we were using phone technology, pinging phones, locating them, tracking who they're calling, who the other bad guys calling, that sort of thing. And so that evolved into using cellular technology and mapping to identify target telephone numbers and movement and place suspects at the scene of the crime.
So can you tell me about how you use the cell phone to track down the serial killer?
Yeah, I was a guy that had killed several people in Los Angeles, and he had traveled across the United States, and there was at the time there was no computer software to help with that. So I ended up getting his cellular data in paper form, and literally had. If I stacked it up, it probably would have gone anywhere between 6 to 10 feet tall, stacked up papers of zeros and ones and locations and Latin longitude readings and whatnot. And I just started mapping his travels, and we were able to link him to several different cases doing that. It took me about 3.5, 4 months to map his travels. But when we knew that he had killed people in California and he traveled now that from my evaluations to Florida, Texas, and he drove several times, the first thing is okay in your mind is, okay, he's driving, he's a serial killer, rapist, murderer. Who else did he kill?
Yeah. And
so that's where one of the early on cases that I had, another one that comes to mind is a DA, a very good prosecutor, Ian Fan, had a murder of colleagues in my office had worked a murder. It was a realtor that was inside of her house, and some bad guys broke in, and they didn't know the house had been for sale. They had scouted it a couple weeks earlier and were going to go back and burglarize it. Well, the family was their last party. It was an Asian community family. And the realtor was Asian, and she was shot and killed on the phone with 911 while she's on the phone. It's all recorded. They shot her and killed her. And the prosecutor was months away from going to trial, and he had cell phone evidence that the detectives had. They were in my office. They didn't know shit from Shinola about cell phone. They knew they had cell phone stuff. They didn't know how to read it, process it. I was doing it word got out, and I put that case together and was able to show how not only the 4 or 5 suspects, I think it was 4 or 5, coordinated and scouted the location prior to, and then their flight and how they met up in a different county, then met another guy, then picked up another guy, and eventually went to the scene. Then they went to another guy's house, and then they separated. So I was able to show all that, and that was all hand analysis until some companies started developing computer software to make it easier and more. It wouldn't take up so much time.
Yeah.
I was one of very, I don't know. There was only a couple of guys like me that were, and when I say guys and gals, but in this case, guys, because I didn't know any gals doing it, but that did that type of work. My partner at my task force actually said he didn't like me doing it. Told me one time, he goes, "I think you're playing with fire. That's all too new. I don't want to see you get in trouble." I'm like, "Trouble? What do you mean?" I just basically said, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about," in my head. You don't understand. This is good shit.
Yeah.
And look where we're at today.
Yeah.
You know, so it's used in just about every homicide case.
So Ty, at some point you end up, you're commanding basically a federal wiretap group. And I want to talk to you about the case in particular, because I think it was so monstrous. But before I talk to you about that, the federal wiretaps, when you were in your groups that you were doing wiretaps, did you ever do state wiretaps in California?
I did.
What was the difference? Tell me the difference between doing a state wiretap and a federal wiretap, because I know what a pain in the ass it is to get approval for a federal wiretap. Is it the same type of thing for a state wiretap?
Yeah, it's the same. It's just different formats and different protocols.
Okay.
I'd actually say was probably a little bit less pain in the ass because you knew some of the people.
Yeah.
Larry Fiddler was LA County. I don't know if Judge Fiddler is still on the bench, but he was the sole person we take wiretaps to in LA County. And the DA's office, LA County, they wrote the wiretap manual for LA County. And so you knew those. I knew those people, even though they were older and they were still involved. They do training and stuff like that. And you know, a lot of the prosecutors that we worked with in gangs or we had cases with had elevated their careers within the DA's office, and they became in charge of the wiretap unit, or you knew one that went there. So you had a working relationship then. When dealing on the federal side with OEO out of a group, like a HIDA group, you don't know who the OEO is. You don't know who the AUSA is. Quite frankly, the AUSAs in California didn't really like local police. You know, they got more of a hard on trying to prosecute us than they did working with us, it seems. That's just the way that their mentality became, which disgusted me. I was fortunate to work with some amazing AUSAs. Unfortunately, I had a couple that I wouldn't piss on if they were on fire. And it was just a different mentality from the federal side to the state side.
Sure.
But taking just a state case and not being a federal entity at all, I'd say I'd give it to the state case just because of the dynamics of what I talked about. Most of the time, we already had a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And it didn't make it easier if the evidence in your case or the probable cause didn't. They were going to hammer you. You don't have enough, detective. You know, you got to come back with more than this.
Yeah.
You know, it was a high threshold, and Judge Fiddler, quite honestly, he could be a dick to you, but extremely knowledgeable man, and would help you as well. I never saw AUSAs piss their pants more when they had to go in front of Judge Fiddler. it was hilarious because I never had that makeup. I didn't. He's just a man. He's a
Right.
judge.
Right.
I'm like, whatever, dude. You can yell at me all you want. I had a football player in high school grab me by the helmet, spit tobacco all over my face, and say, "Get the fuck up and hit somebody, Labbe. Fill the goddamn hole." You think a judge is going to intimidate me? But these, the attorneys are a different cloth.
Yeah.
It was funny to watch. I tell them all the time. I go, Mark, why are you afraid of him so much? I'm not afraid of him. But it was a great dynamic. I feel that my partner and I really, our other entity, the LAPD, they had a similar task force. We really opened the door to using wire intercepts as a tool to solve crime.
Yeah. So tell me about that case where you netted 497 federal indictments, because that's a massive case.
Yeah. It all started with an informant in the city of Compton. And one of my get deputies that worked for me, he developed a street informant. And he got caught with a decent amount of dope, street dope, and he talked. And he turned us on to a gentleman that was manufacturing phencyclidine and doing murders. And he was a street gang member. And the city of Compton has that long, not the city of Compton, the city of Compton gang members, certain areas of that city where gang members operate, has had a long history of using, manufacturing, and making PCP, phencyclidine. And it's generational. And the generation that we were investigating was the upcoming new generation. Other DEA agents and people had put the older one away. Well, now these guys are coming up. And we got into that group for manufacturing of PCP. And when we start looking at them, there was about 9 murders that we eventually linked them to over the course of a 20-year period. That's a serial killer. Might be a gang member, but when he's killed multiple people, he's a serial killer.
Yeah.
So, very significant. Well, I was attached to the FBI. And, quite frankly, in my opinion, they shouldn't be doing street stuff because they don't know what they're doing. And for a year, my case languished. I couldn't get a poll camera. I couldn't get informant buy money. I couldn't get any of the resources I needed to do stuff. So my case kept growing. They're not stopping. They're still killing people. They're still making PCP. They're still wreaking havoc, but I'm not getting the resources I want. And I knew it was a matter of time before the DEA was going to intercept my guy. Because I found out a group out of Hyde, LA was on a PCP case. Lead detective on it was an old Italian guy that I met, John Cedar. And sure enough, I'm at a convention in Reno with a get partner of mine or a gang cop, and the phone call comes in. And they said, "Hey, detective, this is, John. I intercepted your guy on my wire, and I'm going up on him." And I'm like, "You can't do that, man." And so I told my partner, we're in the middle of this convention in Reno, and we're in a federal truck. And I said, wake up. I woke him up. He was wearing fucking pajamas. I never seen that in my life. I go, get your pajamas off. Get your clothes on. Just go. Or either grab your binky and your pillow and jump in the truck. We're driving back to LA. So I'm code 3 in this FBI truck back to LA, and I go to see my boss. And I meet with John, and I had 80 suspects identified. I had over 150 cars identified. I had locations. I had a group I was attached to with the FBI that wouldn't let me do shit, that my hands were tied. And I'm really frustrated as a detective, at this point. And I went to my boss we're gang cops. We don't really play well with the DEA. We're not about dope. We're about guns and murder. And I remember talking to Bob and he goes, "No, no, we're not going to go with the DEA. All he wants is dope. And I fucking got so pissed. I said, you know what, Bob? I go, I want you to go home tonight. Now, mind you, he's a lieutenant. I'm a deputy, a detective. But we had a relationship. I said, go home, drink a snort of whiskey, have your old lady give you a blowjob, and come back tomorrow and make it your fucking idea. But we're going to do it. And I walked out of his office. And of course, he fucking yelled at me and told me he was going to fire me and fuck you, Labbe. And you know, the next day we got together. And you know, it's cops, man. We're alphas.
Yeah.
But he saw and he knew the passion I had. And he knew what I could bring to the table as a man. And he said, let's go meet with him. And we did. And we rocked and rolled.
Yeah.
And I that next day, pretty much the next day, the supervisor from I'd been with the FBI a year, and the FBI hadn't sworn me in as a federal agent, a task force officer. A year. 6 days later, the DEA ASAC came in. Detective, raise your right hand, and he did it in front of the FBI agent.
Who's the ASAC at the time? Do you remember?
It'll come to me.
Okay.
But yeah, the FBI, about a week or a month later, I got brought down to the federal building and sworn in.
That's
insane. And the ATF, we brought an ATF agent on board, and ATF swore me in before the FBI.
We used to deputize guys all the time.
At one time, I had 4 credentials: LASD, ATF, FBI, and DEA. And one time I put all of them on my chain, you know, I go, hey, but we would fuck with that FBI guy all the time. I mean, you know, DEA and FBI didn't get along. Right. But anyway, that's just a sidebar. But yeah, so man, I sat down, never wrote a federal wiretap in my life. Brad Clemmer's over my shoulder. I'm an accomplished detective. I know how to write search warrants like a sumbitch, probably better than him, but not federal ones. And I said, look, man, act like I'm a fucking boot, dictate. And within 3 days, we had that case over to the AUSA and off to OEO to get funded and all that stuff. And we initially went up on narcotics, and then we spun it and went up on both Title 18, Title 19, Title 21, I forget. It's been a while, and chemo and whatnot kind of makes you forget shit. But we went up on both narcotics and violent crime with the purpose of going up for a RICO, but we never met the threshold of RICO because some people failed to do their job. So we had to settle for CC&Es, but that was fine.
Yeah, that's good.
And yeah, we spun off into 4 different states, and we indicted. At the end of the day, it wasn't all my indictments, John and his group and other groups, but you know, I think I indicted about 80, 90 in my case alone. Mm-hmm. And so collectively it was just shy of 500 people, and 4 of them on our side took it to the box. And all 4 of them were convicted for life.
God, what a monster case.
And COVID let one of them out. Yeah, I think he's dead now, but yeah. The main guy, he tried to get out for COVID reasons, and they saw through his bullshit. But yeah, the other guy should not have been let out, obviously.
Oh man, Ty, I could talk to you all day long. Okay, so I want to ask you a question about homicides, and then I'm going to ask you kind of the last couple of questions. You worked on a lot of high profile cases, including, I think, the Phil Spector case.
I didn't work on Phil Spector.
Okay.
A very good friend of mine, a colleague of mine, sat behind me, had the Phil Spector case.
Okay.
I worked, the guy that did the scene on Phil Spector's case, him and I became partners after that.
Okay.
For a little while.
But fair to say you worked on some high profile cases, right?
Well, I don't call them high profile cases.
Okay.
I call them media driven cases.
Okay.
Because reality is, you know, they're media driven and they become what high profile depending on the circumstances. But yes, I've worked on some media driven investigations.
So let me ask you this. In those media driven investigations where it becomes, I'm just going to use the term high profile, and you get these high-powered attorneys in. Do you notice a difference in the level of representation between those high-profile media-driven cases as opposed to, some other murder cases? I mean, these are the worst of the worst cases you could possibly have. But do you notice any, I don't want to say lack of representation, but these people that are coming in, do you see a difference between the ability to represent somebody in these media-driven cases as opposed to a horrific homicide one way or another? Or are they all pretty competent?
Oh no, there's definitely a degree of competency amongst attorneys. I think it's how well a particular attorney is able to exploit the case and the dynamics of a case, and how well a case is put together, and see through the holes in the case and exploit them. And when they do a good job of that, and they publicize it, and they become known, and they do it often, then they become, sought out after attorneys.
Right.
But no, I think it's just like anything amongst cops. There's detectives that do shitty work, and there's detectives that do absolutely phenomenal work. Same with police officers.
Yeah.
Same with dispatchers. Same with RNs, doctors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know really what to say more about that.
Okay. How about this in the media-driven cases? What was your relationship with media? Did you like dealing with those guys?
Well, I never had an issue with media, and I have very good lifelong friends with several of them. I had worked for 7 different captains in my tenure at Homicide, and one of them in particular, rest in peace, Ray Peavy, loved the media, and he made sure that as detectives we knew the media. Unfortunately, after he passed and other people came to Homicide, leaders, they wanted to become the ones in charge of talk to the media. When I got to Homicide, I dealt with the media. It's my case. And that was a lesson learned a long time ago. I wish the sheriff's department would get back to that. The detective talks to the media.
Yeah.
Because the detective controls what is said, not said. And the minute I let a lieutenant or a captain or a chief or a commander open their dumb mouth and say things they shouldn't be saying, you lose the integrity and control of your investigation. And so my partner made sure that I dealt with the media. And that's what was understood as when you were getting broke in. That was part of your breaking in, to deal with the media. And it evolved over time, obviously. I just described how.
Sure.
So I never had an issue with the media. Every once in a while, you'd have to say, hey, look, just relax. We'll get to you in a minute, or things like that. But no, I've actually had a very good working relationship with the media and certain reporters. I would feed them information to make them look good, and they would help me out on my investigations as well. So one thing that I did in one of my wiretaps is I created an avatar. We call it an avatar, and the media helped distribute that image for us and tell that story. So we would call on them to use them as a tool. And they were getting out a story for us, and it was interesting to the public. And so no, I had a great relationship with the media, and I think they're a valuable tool. How the media negatively affects things is, on a media-driven, high-profile case, is they report too much, and they report a bunch of bullshit, and it makes the family go batshit crazy. Like one case in particular, someone put out that they saw the victim who's missing alive in a beach community in California. So the family's blowing me up. They're getting a search party to go up there to look for this person. I already know he's dead. Can't tell him he's dead, but I know he's dead. And my captain's on my jock to do something about it. I got to pull all my team's resources to go up there and put out that fire. So that's where they kind of mess you up on things, you know. And, eventually at the end of the day, I think it was all a lie and a hoax by the suspect to have one of his friends go up there and say that to pull us off the case for a little while. Luckily, he was messing with the sheriff's department, and I had a 10-man team assigned to me. So I could send 2 detectives, so I wouldn't, I was wasting resources, but it was minimal.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do things like that, or they'll seek out your victim. In my case, in one of my cases, I truly feel that, my victim's wife did an interview early on, and, it wasn't a good interview for us. And it came back to haunt her on the stand later on, some of the things she said. And, that's just, they're just doing their job, but it's tough to control an entity in a homicide case, the entity being the media.
Right.
You have to control your homicide investigation, but you can't control individual people either that are free and can speak their mind. And you want to shove a gag in their mouth. You want to be able to tell them, hey, this is going to come back to bite you. Hey, don't do this interview. Shut up. It's only going to hurt you later if we convict somebody or try to. And you can't control that. So they'll pry and pry and pry. And I get it. They're doing a job, but it's a control. When dealing with a high profile case, it's a media driven case, and you have to try to control that. And it's almost damn near impossible. We teach it in school. We teach it to our young detectives. It's until you experience it yourself, it is a whirlwind of emotions and pissed off and frustration because things are happening that you can't control, and it's affecting your case.
Last couple questions for you. Looking back on your career, would you do anything differently?
I always wanted to go and be and have a dog. I love dogs. Since I was a kid, my mom and dad raised Cocker Spaniels. And I think they produced over 30 American and Canadian champion Cocker Spaniels, AKC.
Wow.
My mom became a judge later on. They were very well respected in their community. And so I always loved dogs and raised them. I'd have 6 of them bastards in the garage at any given time. And people don't know it, Cocker Spaniels are nasty. They have a stronger bite than a pit bull when they latch on.
Really?
Yeah, I'd have to take a broomstick and shove it into their jowl to get it to pop to let go of one of the other dogs they're being dominant over. They're some of them can be bastards. And then the show dogs have long hair, so you got to brush them all the time. And when you're 13, you're a slave. You got to do that shit. But I always, if there was one thing I always wanted to do, would probably be a canine. Not necessarily, well, I would have loved to have been a bite dog, but later on in the department, we got all the bomb detection dogs, and that type of stuff, narco dogs, and that always seemed kind of cool to do. But no, that was kind of like a pipe dream for me.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love my career. I love the path it took, and I loved working gangs. My patrol time was 5 years, but I was ready. And 9 years at gangs and almost 16 at homicide. I wouldn't trade that for the world. That was when you become a homicide detective on the sheriff's department, we're world known, and it's a reputation that you have to hold up to. And I felt at the end of my day, I held my end of the bargain. I held up to that reputation as a bulldog, as someone that wasn't going to let go of a case. And knock on wood, I never lost a case in my career as a detective. Uh, and it was an honor and a privilege for me to say I was an LA County Sheriff's homicide detective and to work on the cases that I did for the families that I solved. And I regret not solving the cases I didn't solve. Sometimes they're out of your control. And I understand the dynamics of that, of having worked cases of detectives that I respect that didn't solve those cases, and I solved them later on. I'm sure there's going to be some kid that's going to solve some of my cases, and I respect the shit out of that as well. But I always took pride in that, and so I loved that aspect. We were the elite of the elite, hands down. We may have some tools in the shed that we don't use that we should trim out, but every unit's going to have that. But by and large, the men and women that work sheriff's homicide are a cut above. And you know, there's agencies around the United States that claim that they are the best homicide detectives. But at LA Sheriff's Homicide, when you get there, you don't leave typically. You see very often we have tenured deputies of 20 years. We have one right now that has over 34 years at Homicide Bureau, and he already did 15 or 16 in the street. Mm. You have detectives that come back and get hired back that continue to work. The amount of knowledge in that building and dealing with the complexity of the wide range of cases homicide in LA County deals with is tantamount to none. To none. You know, you could be at a gang murder on Monday and you could be at a domestic the following Monday. You could then be at a mass shooting a week later, or you could be at a child death or a drowning. And you get exposed to so much because you don't work one area. You don't work Carson Station, and that's it. And after 5 years of promoting out, you work the entire Los Angeles County, and you travel the world investigating your cases. People don't realize that I could have been a travel agent along with everybody else. I remember being in Texas. I indicted 13 people and convicted them in Waco, Texas, with my partner. I remember being there in a Waffle House with a detective from Gardena, and he's black, and I'm white, and so we would tease each other, and we call each other Ebony and Ivory, and Chris Cuff is his name. He's an amazing guy. And we're in Texas at a Waffle House, and he'd never been to Texas in his life because he was born and raised and lived in California. And being a Southern boy, I know what a Waffle House is all about. And we're sitting there, and some African-American ladies are sitting there, and they're elderly, and they're trying to figure out their goddamn phone. And it's one of them things that looks like it was huge. And so I go, ma'am, I'll help you with that. Well, I had my sheriff's badge on, and Chris had his Gardena badge on and whatnot. We're in suits. And she's like looking at me, and she goes, Los Angeles County? What the hell you doing all the way out here, boy? And I pointed to the bear, and I said, ma'am, do you see a fence around that bear? And she just started smiling. I go, because we go wherever we need to go to solve the crime. And boy, Chris and I had a great time on that case. It was a lot of fun. But we had a good time with them. We ended up buying their breakfast for them.
Ty, when you look back on your career, two things. How did your law enforcement career affect your family? And then also, how did law enforcement affect the way that you see people?
Oh boy. Well, the family. Let me just say, I was the epitome of what a father is to his sons, like any dad would be proud to be. my whole life and purpose was making sure they were cared for. They learned how to become men. But quite frankly, I was probably a shitty husband. I wasn't around for my wife. I'd leave work to go coach baseball and then go right back.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have a very emotional, caring, loving response back from that woman. So I was shitty. It was rough. I didn't give a shit about coming home and seeing her. Wanted to come home and see my boys. And, so that relationship ended poorly. But I understand why in part, but I think it would have ended poorly anyway. We were just not meant to be. We raised two wonderful boys, and she's a wonderful mother to them. We just, it definitely, my career kind of run that. And, I met my first wife when I was already working gangs. I wasn't in a uniform. My boys never saw me in a uniform till I went to a funeral of one of the persons I coached with. We coached Little League together. And I showed up in a Class A uniform and gave a speech. And that was the first time my boys ever seen me in a Class A uniform. I was always in a suit or soft clothes, undercover, whatever it would be. So they really, I don't think my boys really assimilated to me being a police officer. And maybe now, because I was always a detective. But I've been profiled on a couple of shows and here and there, and I've seen some things. So, but yeah, it was rough, man. It was rough on the relationship. I didn't give a shit. I wasn't there for a relationship with her for a long time. I was all about work and working my ass off and extremely dedicated to my trade.
Yeah.
But I made time for my boys, and most definitely every spare chance I had, that was them.
Mm-hmm.
But, it affects you when you're going to the beach that day and your partner calls and says, hey, we got to roll. We got a deputy shot in the head. Bye. I'm gone, know. So, it messes things up. Now, did I let work come home and beat my wife or, that? No. I mean, I separated that. There's things that they didn't need to know or hear or see.
Mm-hmm.
Another great movie with an excellent technical advisor was Heat,
Mm-hmm.
where he throws the goddamn TV out of the car and, he goes, I see dead people here and there. I see a room full of people that are dead that want to tell me what happened, but I can't hear them. It affects you like that. And the women in our lives that can go through that and survive a relationship to the end, they're the real heroes of life and what being strong is in a different way. I got a great one now. I'm remarried and raising her son, and he's my son, and it was tough for us, but I was retired when we met. When we met and encountered each other again. We'd known each other a long time, but so I don't have the same emotions and things I got to deal with that I dealt with when I was active.
Yeah.
So how does it affect me towards people? Look, I'm like any other cop, man. I walk in the door to this day and I got my back against the wall and I surveyed and I know everything. I know what they're fucking wearing. I know probably if they're right or left-handed by the way they're standing, and I get a read for them. And I'm always cautious. Do I get involved? No. If someone's going to fuck with me off duty, I'm going to put a 9mm under their chin up close and it's going to be night-night. But I'm not getting involved. I'm a good witness. I'm just a retired cop these days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nobody. But it affects, you're cautious until you don't need to be. I have great friends in other parts of the States, and I recently went up and visited some of them, and I met some amazing people. And do I know them intimately? No. Can I trust them? Maybe not. But, you learn to evaluate people just by looking at them and sizing them up better than probably anyone else in the world. That's what we had to do. but I don't let it affect me. I'm just cautious. I'll give you an incident. The other day, I bought a 30-pack of beer and a bag of ice. And I went over to the ice compartment, and some lady that I had seen walking around the store kind of looked like a tweaker. It's a little, what the fuck is she doing? Just kind of your radar goes off. No big deal. Size her up. She's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. She's not strapped. It's all good. Well, the minute I bend over to get a bag of ice, she's on my shoulder. Oh, hi, I got 3 bags of ice. Oh, well, let me grab them for you. I load her up. Well, it could have been the ice was cold, or she just acted weird. She hit the corner behind the store and took off. I looked at my wife, who was waiting for the bag of ice at the back of the pickup. I go, hang on a second. I walked in the store and I go, hey, the lady behind me in line, did she pay for 3 bags of ice? And she goes, no, she didn't. I go, well, she just got 3 bags from you. So, you're always looking.
Yeah.
And you always get that 6th sense.
Yeah.
But, again, here we go, fucking civic duty, walking in and getting involved, right?
Okay, so last question for you, Ty. You make it through your entire career, and, you hear a lot of stories about people retiring and you drop dead, right? 6 months later, the guy's dead. Well, you made it through your entire career. You get to 2024 and you end up getting cancer.
Yep.
So tell me what happened.
Well, I had a toothache and I was umpiring. I love high school sports and baseball, and travel ball. And I'm like, my travel ball, my kids phase out of travel ball. I phase out of coaching that aspect. I applied to be a high school baseball coach because I was a catcher, and I know the position very well.
Sure.
And nothing really came up, so I said, I'm gonna do the next thing. I'm gonna do umpire. So I was umpiring. I was in my 2nd year of umpiring high school sports, and I had a toothache, my right side and the back. So I'm not big into root canals. More of a homeopathic approach to that type of dentistry. And so I just said, pull it. I don't need to pull it. They pulled it, and he said, your other tooth is a little loose, but it'll heal up and it'll tighten up. Well, I'm diabetic, so it takes a while for me to heal. So it was taking a while for that to heal. And I'd take one off the cage, and I'd spit some blood out. And I'd take another one off the cage, and I'd take more antibiotics. And finally I went and I said, hey, something ain't right. You know your body. And my dentist kind of set an appointment a couple months out. You know how they are. If you're listening, dentistry, don't do that. Clear your calendar. Or, God, let's create more dentists. So I got blown off for like 3 months from my dental group. And the day I went in for a specialist to look at my mouth, they screwed up on the schedule and I wasn't going to get looked at. And I told them, I basically cried in the lobby and I said, no, you're sending me to someone today. And so they sent me to this gentleman down in Rancho Cucamonga. And he may have saved my life, that man. He took one look at me and said, I'm not biopsying that, Ty. He goes, in my experience, you have cancer. And you need to see a head and neck specialist today. He knew it was bad. He took a scan of my head. What he didn't show me was that the cancer over probably the last year, they don't know how long it was in me, had eaten a hole in my bone. My mandible on my right side only had maybe 1/4 of an inch left of bone before it broke in 2. So it was pretty bad. I got seen that day. She biopsied it, and Kaiser oncologist there to lower level said, yeah, it's cancer. She goes, I agree with him. So 3 days later, results were in. So yeah, I called my wife, cried on the phone, told her what I was doing. Said, do you need me to meet you there? I go, no, I'll be all right. And of course, I called Kaiser. I think it was the day they told me my biopsy, and I get a hold of some lady on the phone, and I'm getting jerked off. And I don't have patience when it comes to incompetency. I guess that's my biggest fault. If you're an incompetent human being, I'm gonna fucking run right over you, and I'm gonna tell you you're a fucking dipshit and get out of my way. So my wife, feeling the frustration of me on the phone, said, "Hang up," and she did, or I did, and our neighbor worked for Kaiser. We didn't know what she did. We just know she worked for Kaiser, and she was an RN, but she was in an administrative role. Well, okay. Well, she called up Christine and my angel, and Christine goes, "What the fuck? He has what?" And so within a week, we had 7 or 8 scans scheduled. I met with the head oncologist of head and neck for Kaiser. I met with the plastic surgeon, her boss of Kaiser. I met with radiation people. My case was thrown on the tumor board on Monday. A plan of action was taken. And 31 days later, I was operated on June 25th with a procedure called jaw in a day. It's where they basically removed the decision for me from the board was to cut me open and get it out, and then radiate the shit out. And they lied to me. They said, "Well, you might not need chemotherapy." That bullshit, So whatever. I was probably just to get me on the slab, but I needed both. So they cut me open, and it was a 12-hour surgery. I was in a coma for 2 days, and I had stage 4A cancer. I was, as I like to say, a cunt hair away from dying and getting stage 5, metastasizing my body. That didn't happen. So they saw cut me right here, and I've seen enough heads get saw cutted. They saw cutted me right down the middle and right down my mandible, and they decided to play witch doctors. And this procedure, while they're doing all that to you, another team of crazy Kaiser doctors are cutting your leg open. And they saw cut my leg open and cut me from the bottom of my knee to my ankle. And I had a tattoo on my ankle. And they remove your fibula. So they take parts of your fibula, they take your skin and your meat and a vein, a section of vein out, and they cut the fibula, they shape it, and they put it as your jawbone now, and they take your muscle and your gum, or your tissue down your leg, and they form it around the bone, and they bolt it together with a titanium brace with 10 screws. And they put in a set of fake teeth that are set below your normal teeth because you can't chew on it. And then they put the vein in your neck to connect, to pump more blood into that area to make it heal. And then they take what I call a potato peeler and they skin graft the top of my thigh. So I look like I have a fucking landing strip on my thigh. And they graft it to the lower part of your leg. And in my case, I had a tattoo on my leg, which now became in my mouth. So the tattoo on my leg is in my mouth. And the crazy thing is, it grows hair. Yeah, it grows hair.
In your mouth?
Yeah. So the doc has to pluck it out. And so you may edit this, I don't care.
I'm not going to edit it.
But my wife is sitting next to me, and the doctor, they're the Asian culture. They're kind of shy. They see a lot of patients. They probably haven't ever seen a person like me before. And so when he's plucking the hair out and he's kind of giggling, telling me what's going on, I roll my tongue around like this, and I go, "Hey, doc, is that why it feels like I've been eating pussy all week?" And my wife's like, "Oh boy, here we go." But I couldn't help it, man. I was like, I had to throw that shit out, right?
The doctor said.
Oh, he just giggled and got all red faced and blushed. But we laugh about it now. They're all very good friends to me. They're a family. I listen. There's only one negative thing I can say, and it's not so much Kaiser, it's the medical industry. When you're diabetic and you're getting operated on and whatnot, they don't care about your medicine and all that and your blood thing. If you're high, they put insulin in you. Mm-hmm. And I was pissed about that. I don't want to be insulin dependent. They could have done a better job at controlling and helping me understand my diabetes, but I get it. That said, that's like a fraction of a tenth. The Kaiser staff, and I'm not here to promote Kaiser, but these are people that were so gracious, so caring, loving, accommodating, and smart and talented. They saved my life, and they made this whole process for me, my family, smooth. To this day, other than the first initial phone call, which we all got to deal with, to the other issues. I mean, it was just amazing treatment. And I asked them, because I wanted to go to City of Hope. I was never a Kaiser guy until I married my wife, and she said, "Can we switch to Kaiser?" And I had just switched to Kaiser. And I've been with Blue Cross, Anthem, and I'm like, I want to go to City of Hope. I begged Kaiser to refer me out. And they said, no, we've done this procedure. We can do this. And I met with my head oncology and my team. And I told you, we can read people. And I did my homework. I looked into their backgrounds and who they were. And I met them. And I'm like, I'm in good hands. Or I'm in the best hands I'm going to get with the medical side. And I know God's hands is the best hands I can get because I am a religious man. And I believe God has a plan for all of us. And I think his plan for me was to smack me around a little bit and say, hey, wake up, dipshit, or I'm going to kill you. And you're coming on my team, or you're going to do something good down there below. And so I've taken it upon myself to outreach, and I formed groups. I found 4 other cops that had the same cancer as me, all within a month of each other. One of them's a 31-year-old female CrossFit champion. Another one was, 2 other ones were detectives. And one of them had the exact same thing as me on the other side of the face. Another one had a variation of it, and the female sheriff had a variation. But it was all head and neck. One of them passed. He just passed. He didn't make it. But we formed a group together. I formed the group. And we're all friends to this day. And it's been huge because we support each other emotionally, with medicine, over-the-counter type stuff, homeopathic remedies. Any doctors are listening, wake up, use ivermectin, please. And so it's great. Like, I didn't know that you should freeze your hands and feet when you do chemo so that you don't get neuropathy, so that the poison they fucking put in your body doesn't go into the cold, frozen part. You learn these tricks. And so having a group like that, I get dry mouth. I have no lymph nodes. I had 38 lymph nodes removed from my face. I didn't know we had that many. I have no saliva production in my right side of my face. Which can lead to gum disease and other issues. Right now, I'm facing bone decay, and I'm on experimental drugs to try to stop my teeth and face and new bone from decaying so that my face doesn't collapse and I can't eat. I got to be on a feeding tube. So that's scary. And people go, oh, you look great. They don't know that I'm still a shit show. I tell them I'm like a helicopter. And if you know how a helicopter works, there's a lot of moving fucking parts and with no direction. It's the way it is. I said my mouth and body's like a helicopter. There's a lot of moving parts. It's going to be a while. And I guess the hardest part for me is I asked my docs, I said, hey, when am I going to stop feeling like this? And they both bow their heads and say never. It's just the new you. Live with it. So I go back to mom and dad, and you just got to buck up and live with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
What's your prognosis? Is it good?
I've been cancer free since October 2nd. I have a test coming up, so there's anxiety with that, as cancer patients know. But there's unknown. I don't know what the bone density is going to be. So,
Yeah.
you just got to live for today and keep going forward.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm not one to quit. So, dig your feet in, take a stance, and, be here until the good Lord says you're coming.
Ty, thank you for the interview. It was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.